Alright, we're back in video 2 for today. And anyway, back in video 2, we've been talking a lot about cold weather stuff. Now I just kind of rambles, not really in any particular order or whatever, so just take notes, right? So, cold weather is one of the roughest environments to deal with. It's unforgiving. Completely unforgiving. Because if you are in a cold element, you could die of exposure in minutes, okay? You won't flash freeze like you see in some movies, but, it'll be doggone cold. And you won't last long. So I've been kind of going over the mucklucks here a bit, and stuff like this, but I'm wearing a Ushanka, alright? That's the Russian. I'm probably saying it wrong. I don't. But this particular trapper hat, right? In America they call them trapper hats. And trapper hats are actually a combination of a Ushanka and the old pilot's hat. Okay, so or maybe one is, well, they may not even be derivative of each other, but they're very close together. But in America, they say that this is the combination of the two. Now, this particular one is just a basic off-the-shelf model that you could purchase at Cabela's. Okay, so I'm not spending $1,000 for one of these made out of Wolverine or mink or beaver or anything else. I'm not. Okay, because I'm not out there in those elements all the time. Somebody who's out there all the time, who's constantly working in that environment all the time, then I would say, yeah, go ahead and get yourself a beaver or a Wolverine or something like that, right? But this one is I think this was about $50, and here around the house, if I need to wear this, my head's not cold. Okay, it's not cold. This is rabbit. This is real rabbit lining. Okay, in the top on the inside, it's some kind of a synthetic with some kind of a synthetic baffling, and then on the outside is wool and something else. Probably polyester or acrylic. That's usually what they use. But it is part wool on the shell. It's not something that I wear all the time. As a matter of fact, I got this particular one. I like the color, and I tried it on. I knew it would be warm for what I wanted to do, which was work around the property, and in emergency situations, survival trapping, survival hunting, that sort of thing. Generally, I like something with a bill, which I've talked about before. This comes down. This is good for sleeping. Okay, I've used one of these for sleeping. So just put on a balaclava, put one of these on, keep your head out of your sleeping bag, and go to sleep. So it's good for that too. I have a Bringy balaclava, which is it's 2 layers. It's mesh on the inside. It's mesh underwear on the inside, and then another layer on the outside. So it's a regular balaclava. Comes on, has points for 2 eyes, and there's nose and mouth, but there's a shielding in front, so it has a redirect. I'll just bring it out. Okay, just bring it out for you. Talk about a few things today, cold weather related. Got a lot of cold weather stuff from over the years. Yeah, I've been going out in very cold weather for a long time. So, but I've been back and forth between environments over the years, you know. So I've got stuff for jungle. I've got stuff for you know, the boreal, Arctic. I've got stuff from here for there. This is the Bringy Norwegian mask that I have. Put this on. So as you can see, it's got 2 eyes. But I want to point this out. There's a mouth opening here, but it's covered. See, it's got this piece of material that covers and redirects. Covers and redirects stuff. Covers and redirects air. Just dropping everything here. Alright, so it covers and redirects air, so that way you do not get a direct input of freezing air into your nose and mouth. So it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting design. Now, this here, I mean, it's better for people who are not wearing glasses. Okay, let's just get down to that. So, you could wear this on the dog sled, or you could wear it while you're in your sleeping bag. Alright. These have various names too. The Yushenka is just a Russian name, but yeah, there is one of these that that Miklagard has on their website. It's real nice looking. I'm not sure how it is on the very inside, but it does have. I mean, it's wool, but it does have the pile, the wool pile. Okay, you'll see it when you look at it. And then these Flyers mitts are awesome. I love these. I've had these for a lot of years. I've used them. I've used these in -40. didn't feel a thing. So these are extra mitts. Okay, these are wool mitts. Alright, these are actually finger mitts. But, you know, you don't have to use that. You could just use this. Right? You can use that if you want. You just use that. So these are extra mitts I put in there. So normally these Flyers mitts, they've got a wool lining already. So there is a wool lining in here all the way up through the gauntlet, all the way up to there. Right? And that is good for, you know, quite cold. You know, definitely below freezing. Okay. But if you use it with just this normal liner, then there's a little bit more dexterity there. Okay, not a lot. I mean, these are for guys piloting an aircraft, if I remember correctly. But you know, to pull back on the levers and all that jazz. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it's cold out and it works. Use it, right? So this is wool right here. So this is Mooten wool pile. Okay, like in those Mikkelgard mitts, they got wool pile. This is wool pile here, right? Good for wiping your nose when you start having a runny nose in the cold weather. Now, this right here is for a cord, okay, and that there's like this little cord system that, you know, attaches these to the person over the shoulder and all that stuff. There are various harnesses depending on, like dog sledding, they have the mitt harness. That way you can take your mitts off, let them dangle in the front of you, and then when you're done using your hands for whatever, you put your mitts back on, and then you say, "Yeehaw, let's go," right? But anyway, you don't say "yeehaw" because I think it's G and haw is for left and right on the dog sled. It's a lot of years since I can't remember much no more. But anyway, you just say, "Let's go," you know, and then there you go. But these have always been very good for me. You know, only when I don't need to take something on and off for dexterity is when I really want to use these. So, for instance, if it's very cold outside and I'm Nordic skiing, or I am snowshoeing, I might wear something like this. I might go ahead and put these on if it's super cold, you know, because then I'm using a couple of ski poles or walking sticks, you know, and making forward momentum through the snow. If the snow's excessively deep and you have a party of people, you can switch off who's breaking trail. Okay, you can switch off. Like the other day I was outside, I broke trail to the back of my property there to take a measurement for snow, which was 18 inches right there. Now, there are places around the property that got up to 24 inches, okay? But the average at my place was 18 inches. And but when I broke trail to go there, but did I just turn around and go a different path back? Did I break trail on the way back? No. I turned around and I followed my path back because that was already broken trail. Okay. When you break trail, you're making it easier for those behind you following, right? So I have worn these in minus 40 Fahrenheit. I like them. some people poo-poo them because they are military surplus. But you know what? They work. They work. Okay. They work, and I am not ashamed of using military surplus. There's a lot of good stuff out there that you and I as taxpayers paid for, right? And if we could get it at a bargain and enjoy it, then we should be able to do that, all right? I have thought about sewing a tunnel around here and then having a draw cord right here so I could just grab it with my teeth and draw it up and then put the barrel lock there. Yeah, I've thought about doing that. I've thought about sewing that tunnel again around here and then putting shock cord in there, sewing the shock cord so that it just expands enough to get heavy clothing in and then tightens back down. But you know, shock cord wears out, as we saw on my finger mitt gloves, glove mittens, whatever you want to call them, as we saw on that. Now see, in this particular situation here, I put on the trigger mitt wool liner, and then I stuck it in here with this other wool liner. So now I've got basically a double wool liner. But after I got my hand in here, I take my finger out of the trigger mitt finger, okay, the index finger portion, and I put it in with the rest of the fingers in the mitt. So just having it in the trigger mitt index finger, putting it on, keeps everything smooth when you put it on. Then once you get it in there, you can take your finger out of there and rejoin it with the rest of its buddies in the main section. And then the other bit will just go as extra insulation between your hand and the outside world. Right? A little less, okay, dexterity, but you're getting more warmth. Okay. And then of course I've got my wool sweater, aka jumper, inside of here. Okay, so that's like several layers of wool there. One thing you could do if you want to continue to use this strap to tighten things up, you can wax it. If you wax this strap right here, if you wax the part that slides through your buckle, then it will move freely. Okay, a lot of times those like to bind up. Okay, so now that's snug up there pretty good, and then of course there it is. All right. If you want to, you could just shove it under here or something like that, but it doesn't really matter because it's over there, right? Where am I on time? I'm always running out of time. I always got stuff to say. Now, come back to the bush buddy here. Well, see, I have waxed this one a few times, so it still moves pretty freely in there. Right. I leave the liner mitts inside when I'm storing these things. That way I don't never just looking around for them. You can make up your own cordage system to where you just clip these into it when you put on your coat if you want to, you know. That way if it's excessively windy outside, you don't ever have to worry about losing one of your mitts. Now, you're going to laugh when I just say this to you. you might lose one of your mitts, you know, because I know that most of you out there have never been in a situation where the wind was so fierce that you know a human body could be lifted up in the air and slung several feet. I have. So a glove, even these are kind of weighty. These would just be gone, gone. So I've been in wind like that. It's scary. You know, I was in wind like that at sea one time, and it was scary. You know, I'm not scared of much, but the elements can be scary. Holy smokes! You see something fly by you that you thought could never be picked up by wind. You know, and the only reason why you didn't fly is because you were behind something that weighed several thousand pounds. You know, see some stuff flying through the air, but you know, you're on duty. You gotta stay there. You can't go anywhere, right? You see something fly by. Whew. Wow. Some stuff is incredible. Some stuff that the elements can do is incredible. Incredible. Sometimes you hear about tornadoes picking up cows. You know, cows getting sucked up in a tornado and it flying down the street, you know, or flying down the road or whatever. You know. Yeah, yeah, but that's not necessarily a tornado. It's just wind. Just wind. Wind can be incredible. Incredible wind. If you want to experience a very serious wind, take a little trip up Mount Washington in New Hampshire. Take a little trip up there when it's really gusting. You know, the wind can be 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour sustained wind. You know, there are times when they probably will not let you up there. Only the people that are working on their weather degrees and stuff like that who have a rotation in and out of Mount Washington will get to play in that stuff. But yeah, there's times though you could be up there and not be working there, and you know, completely lean into the wind almost sideways, and you know, watch out, you'll become a kite, man. You better have some kind of rope to hold you down. You'd be like squirrel suit, you know, right? Be Rocky the Flying Squirrel. Anyway, yeah. Weather can be vicious. So, you always have to be prepared for weather. Being prepared for weather often means extra stuff. That's why you want to learn to be able to keep stuff between your pulk and your back, right? So, yeah. Just one of the toughest environments, cold weather. Cold, freezing weather with snow, ice, wind. And I'm gonna tell you, you know, I don't know how many people poo-poo wind chill. Wind is a killer, man. Wind is a killer. I always say, Never treat the base temperature as the real temperature. Never do that. Never, ever, ever. Never, never. Always treat the wind chill factor temperature as your quote unquote real temperature. Always go with the wind chill factor temperature. Always. Because wind is a killer, man. It will kill you. Can remember it being 35, minus 35 Fahrenheit, the wind chill factor. The wind was crazy and it was sustained. And the wind chill factor was minus 80 Fahrenheit. I mean, I've been in minus 80 many times. But the thing is that if you do not have proper coverage, instant frostbite practically. I mean, it is terribly cold. I mean, minus 35 Fahrenheit is kind of like a summer day without wind. It's easy to deal with when there's no wind. You just cover up a bit, make sure you're covered up, you got proper insulation, and go about your business. But wind is a killer. I can't stress that enough, but wind is a killer. Wind will kill you. Oh, it's minus 85 with the wind chill factor, but that's not the real temperature. The real temperature is it's only minus 30 out. I just want to pick that person up by the scruff of their jacket and just smack the crap out of them and tell them to wake up, you know, because the wind is a serious business. They don't make wind chill factor charts for fun. They make it to keep you alive. Just remember, wind chill factor plus base temperature equals the temperature that you should dress to. I'll say it one more time. The wind chill factor plus your base temperature is equal to what you should dress for. Okay? You should be dressing for you should not be dressing for the base temperature. You should be dressing for the wind chill factor temperature. So that mystery number that gets figured into the base temperature and spits out the wind chill factor temperature. Okay, you need to respect the wind chill factor temperature. Let's say, oh well, it's minus 85 Fahrenheit, but that's the wind chill factor. Well, is that wind sustained? Sustained wind means it's constantly blowing. Okay, so it may be minus 65 for a few seconds, minus 85 for a few seconds, it may be minus 100 for a few seconds, and then go back to minus 65 for a few seconds. So that is not sustained, that's intermittent winds, but it's sustained enough to kill you. Okay, so you just keep it in mind to overdress depending, because you can always take something off if you really think that you need it, you know. But I can remember a time when I was dressed up. I had a full suit. I had a full snowsuit. I don't even know if they make snowsuits now. Back in the day, I had a full snowsuit. Let me just start at the bottom. I had wool socks. I had mucklucks. I had a snowsuit. I had long johns, top and bottom. Wool long johns, top and bottom. Uh, the mucklucks I had were reindeer. I had reindeer fur-lined mucklucks that my father had bought me. Uh, this is when I was young, and I was really like getting savvy about the weather, the cold weather. And I had the mucklucks, and I had uh, wool long johns, top and bottoms. I had uh, a regular set of trousers, okay, which I think were wool. And then I had a wool long sleeve shirt, okay, um, flannel. It was, well, it was tartan, you know. It was a wool, I guess you could call it wool flannel, but it was, it was all wool, 100% wool. And then on top of that, of course, was the other layer of the snowsuit. The snowsuit was a one-piece unit. Had zippers, big zippers down the legs. And then suspenders on the inside to help with the weight of the snowsuit. Snowsuit was stuffed with wool batting. I remember that there was a wool batted snowsuit. My dad never bought wool, or never bought down. He always bought wool because he said down was no good. He says if you're out in the elements and you fall through the ice, he says the down is no good. So everything was wool, 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 wool. And I'm still that way. Wool, wool, wool. And I had snowmobile mitts, which were very much like these Flyers mitts, but they were wool lined. So they had molten wool on the inside, and they were gauntlet style. So I had those. I can remember having on 2 balaclavas. 2. Right? So you saw the balaclava I had there a minute ago. I had 2 balaclavas on. They were knit style. So they were thick wool knit balaclavas. And then I had a wool knit hat, and I had ski goggles. That's right. As a kid, a kid, they didn't call off school when I was a kid. You went to school. I mean, it had to be very extreme for them to shut down school. Extreme. The plows, basically, the plows had to have been working. And I don't know, I mean, it was serious stuff. It had to be really serious, really serious for them to call off school, because they expected us to be tough as kids. Toughen up, kid. That's the way it was. Not like nowadays, you get 1 millimeter of snow and, oh my God, shut down the roads. No. We trudged back and forth to school. That one winter, a lot of winters were bitter, but this one winter, it was bitter. And I think I just was like, screw it, I left my snowmobile mitts at school in my locker. I thought, well, it's not that far, it's only a few miles. And I got frostbite walking home from school. It wasn't bad, but I kept sticking my hands in my crotch and, things like that. Crotch of the snowmobile suit and in the pockets. And I got home. I got a good scolding. Yeah. Told real good. Never do that again. And I didn't. I learned my lesson. Don't leave your mitts at school just because you don't want to mess around with putting them on. You know, I mean, it was a chore getting in and out of your winter clothing after you got in school. You know, but you learned. Don't do that. Don't be stupid. Yeah. All right. Good. Good. Shut this one down. Guys, got any questions, comments? You know what to do. The email's there. Catch you later.